All right, everybody. I said I wasn't going to do a review of Killing Commendatore, and I stand by that. But there are two things that I really wanted to talk about reading it this time. So I'm just going to do a little side video, and one of them will be huge spoilers, and one of them not so much. The first thing I want to talk about is my experience reading the book, and particularly what I did differently this time since the last time I read it. Because the last time I read Kafka on the Shore, I started taking pictures of certain segments in order to prove my theory about Miss Psyche and Kafka's relationship, and I would send them to my friends as we would discuss the book. But this time, what I found doing that was that I'm actually extremely fastidious and OCD with my books. I have books that I have read 10 times, and it barely looks like I've read them once. I very rarely get cracks in the spine. I don't like bending pages, and I sure as hell don't like writing in the book or attaching sticky notes to it. I'm totally OCD about my books, and this is a consequence of, as a younger child, I would absolutely treat my books like crap. I would, in elementary school, toss them in my backpack, and they would get destroyed, bounced around, beat up to hell and back. And I don't know, as a consequence, as I've gotten older, I don't even use a backpack anymore, just to force myself to keep things neat and tidy. I'm kind of a unneat person who has shaped and structured my life in a way that it forces me to be neat. And my books are one of the things so I take very seriously about that. And it's one of the reasons I don't use libraries, although I absolutely support libraries and think that anybody who can use them should. But I find their books absolutely disgusting, having been manhandled by so many different people. Just ew, gross, nasty. But one of the things that I lose out on with this sort of OCD approach is the ability to take notes on things, which I never really minded too much, because usually when I read, I want to get more caught up in the story and what's going on, and to stop and take notes, or to stop and add a sticky note or whatever, breaks my flow. But this time, more and more, whenever I come across a passage or something I enjoy, what I've been doing is I've been stopping and taking a picture of it with my phone. And I find that in doing so, by the time I stop reading, grab my phone, take the picture, crop the picture to just be that text, it gives me a lot of time to reflect on that passage, similar to a way taking a note does. So while it does very much interrupt the flow of the story, it also causes a lot more deeper reflection on the story. And I wanted to share that technique for anybody who, like me, is very OCD and doesn't want to write in books and doesn't want to take tabs, but still wants to get sort of the benefits of that, because it did really allow me to draw more connections and more understandings about the characters throughout the stories, and the way that they really reflect one another, and to just kind of take passages out that I think are important to understanding the themes, and then see how they would tie back and relate to each other, and really helped me unlock sort of the numerous layers and the numerous reflections of things that are going on with this book. Because I think one of the things about Murakami that I talked about in terms of Nosgard's latest, The School of Night, kind of failing at, is when different characters reflect different themes, and the way in which those reflections end up informing characters a lot more than others. So one of the characters in Killing Commendatore, Tomohiko Hamada, is really, he's not in the book, really, except for once at the very, very end, and yet he's sort of omnipresent. And while you do get to learn a lot of his story, it's only this time reading it that I really began to feel him come alive as a character, because I began to really see how his actions and the events in his life are mirrored in the other characters, and how he handled it lends depth to his being and his existence compared to the other characters, and really made him and really all the characters come alive in a way that they never did before. And I mentioned this being something lacking in the Night School by Nosgard, and it's something that I've always known about, but having seen it been lacking in that book really made me want to think about it and read with it in mind. And I mentioned in the review of that book, Wind Up Bird Chronicle being a good example, but here also I think is a really great example of a book where there aren't many characters, and yet each character reflects the themes of the book and the situations and circumstances that they live in off of each other so well that even though there's not many characters, I really do think that there's a lot more depth to them than we give credit for. So I'm going to stop here and say, or I'm going to stop here in terms of, if you don't want spoilers for the book, please stop. Please go read it. It's one of my favorites by Murakami. But let's kind of go ahead and move forward now into concrete examples of what I'm saying. So you've got really, I think, 4 major characters in Killing Commendatore. The unnamed protagonist, Marie Akikawa, Menshiki, and Amada. And each one of them has these sort of connections in terms of their lives, and how that connection, or how they came about this situation, really, I think, reflects and or rather how they decided to react to the situation, or whether they chose it, really contrasts with each other and lends more depth and understanding to these characters. So, for example, just in terms of their characters, not necessarily getting into themes, let's start with the fact that they're all isolated people. The protagonist is living away from everybody because he is hurt. He recently, or the book starts with his wife asking for a divorce, and he is so kind of out of touch with himself and his own feelings that he can't admit, and it takes most of the book for him to admit just how much this upsets him and just how much he doesn't want it. So he's living isolated to kind of lick his wounds and kind of stew and sulk in his own way. And really, that's being uncharitable. He's trying to find himself as well, but a lot of it is also self-pitying. Menshiki is isolated because of what happened in his past with the trading problems, and specifically because he's starting to doubt his life's philosophy and everything that he tried to acquire and attain, and is instead most focused on the possibility of Marie being his daughter. And in that sense, he doesn't need anybody else. He doesn't want anybody else. As long as he can kind of keep tabs on her, he doesn't care about anything else in the world. Then you have Marie, who is also isolated, and this is in part because she struggles to make friends with people because her home situation is really not great. I mean, she has her aunt who takes care of her and is a great caretaker, but her father is always absent. She's really injured from the loss of her mother, which loss is another thing that all these characters have in common that I'll kind of get to later. But she just struggles also to connect with other people because at home she's so just unable to have that sort of happy home life, or feel like she does, until she really ends up losing it in Menshiki's mansion, and she starts to appreciate those things that she does have and those positive aspects of her life. This is also why I know one of the sort of big conflicts with the book is how much she and the main character talks about her breasts and her, which obviously is a metaphor for development, growing up, becoming an adult. But also, to me, it makes perfect sense when you think about the fact that she has nobody her own age who she can talk to about these concerns. She could talk to her aunt, but the thing is, she mentions a few times that she feels like her existence and her needs have deprived her aunt of the opportunity to live her own life. So in her own way, Marie really wants to be dependent, wants to kind of grow up, not just because she isn't totally happy with the life that she has, but also because she feels that she's, as much as she loves and appreciates her aunt, she feels like she's kind of ruining her aunt's life, just by existing and needing this care and attention. So she wants to grow up. She wants to be an adult as quickly as possible so that she can escape this situation. And when she has, when she's, worried about her development of breasts, of, to her what symbolizes becoming a woman. She can't talk to her aunt about it. She can't talk to anybody her age about it. She can't talk to her mother about it. And in that sense, her art teacher is somebody who is close enough that she can actually like talk to him one-on-one in private, but not also so close that him knowing her concerns could, in a way, lend and make her vulnerable. So, at least in the context of this book, I actually find it extremely natural and understand completely why she would open up to the main character in this way, even if he is middle-aged. And I don't think there's anything weird or creepy or even really sexual about it at all. It's really not sexual in the least. Like, yes, it is a sexual organ in that sense, but it's not treated in any sexual way. It's more about development and adulthood than anything else. But finally, you have Tomohiko Amada, who, after being caught and deported back to Japan, lives this sort of isolated life on the mountain place. Before, he was described as being outgoing, a playboy, and then he gets caught up in this revolution, and then he goes back home, lives in the mountainside, marries kind of out of obligation and late in life, has a son, but still spends most of his time away from his family and painting in isolation. So here you have multiple different characters who are isolated. In the case of Marie and the main character, it's because of sort of personal injuries or these sort of things that are lacking in their life, emotional holes in their being. Arguably, you could say the same about Menshiki and Amada, but there's a more physical aspect there. Both Menshiki and Amada were also harmed by society. Menshiki in the way that he was falsely arrested and lived his life in prison for a year. Amada in the way that the war deprived him not only of his sort of innocence in Vienna, but also in the way that it cost him the life of his younger brother, whom he was very protective of. So in that sense, there's a connection between Menshiki and Amada, the sort of older characters in the book. But every character in this story has lost someone. In the case of the protagonist, he's lost his wife, not literally in the sense that she's dead, but in the sense that there's a divorce, but he has also lost his younger sister in the sense that she is dead. In the case of Menshiki, he lost his lover. In the case of Marie, she lost her mother. In the case of Amada, he lost his lover and brother. And this isn't sort of loss in the same sense of the city and its uncertain walls type of loss, where the city and the uncertain walls, its uncertain walls was about loss, but it wasn't about necessarily death and trauma in the same way that this story is, because again, this I actually need to think about this a bit more. I'll circle around that maybe, or I'll just give it more time to think, because to me they feel like very different things. But because in the case of this, it's about how these people are reacting directly to the loss, and the things that they're using to fill in the blanks and how that's hurting people. So, in the case of the protagonist, it's him taking the his wife for granted and trying to find in his wife a surrogate sister, which is not really what his wife is. And he even concludes near the end of the book by saying that have I really just been going on this? Have I really just been taking this for granted? Looking for a surrogate sister, and if so, then I'm sorry for taking my wife, Yuzu, on this long, roundabout, stupid journey. Amada is looking for some kind of social way to make things right, a way to correct the injustice that was seen both upon him, upon his brother, upon his the lanterns in Vienna, and the failure of their attempted uprising. And with Minshiki's case, he's trying to fill sort of the void that is being left by the fact that he focused so much on his life, and he doesn't necessarily regret it, but at the same time, he's focused so much on the physical that when it comes to the sort of emotional side of things, he's starting to, as he gets older, question whether or not he really did the right thing. And that's sort of another aspect of this book. I think really one of the huge themes of the book is about art and art's ability to impact people and change people for the better. The main character really starts this journey of self-discovery with killing Commendatore in the way that he relates to the painting, and how through this painting as a metaphor, he's able to identify sort of his problems. Also, in his own work in Shiki, they kind of work in tandem. He sort of identifies himself and his own problems, and is able to move forward and seek out that surrogate, or is able to accept Komi's death and kind of return to his wife and face the world without constantly trying to find that surrogate in other people. And this is even reflected when he kills the Commendatore and Conehat, or no, Conehat is his metaphor. The metaphor, Longface, the last thing he says is, I hope you find Komi. And he's, the main character is like, what? How did you know that name? Because he thinks he's going into the underground world to find Marie, but really in Marie, in Yuzu, his wife, he just sees his younger sister and people everywhere he goes, and he eventually learns to accept that his younger sister lives with him in memories, but that he can't expect that of other people, in much the same way that Marie lost her mother. But and while she's been using this sort of penguin charm as a surrogate, in terms of the penguin charm being her innocence, once the protagonist gives it up in the underworld, she finds her mother's clothing. And while she doesn't know that it's her mother's clothing, it still comforts her and it protects her. And it essentially gives her the sort of strength to realize that while her mother is dead, the strength and the memories live on inside of her. And that strength can serve when, even as her innocence fades and she grows up, she can draw power from that will protect her against sort of the harshness of life. So really the protagonist and Marie's journeys of accepting the passing of people and accepting that they live inside or inside of them in their memories are also reflected in each other. But also both Marie and the protagonist believe in art. Marie says at one point, I believe in things that can be seen more than those, or I like things that can't be seen as much as those that can. Something like that. And the protagonist agrees. And at another point, Menshiki mentions that he's envious of the protagonist because the protagonist can sort of wants things that he can't have. He describes himself as a man who's always wanted what he can have, and the protagonist is somebody who has always wanted what he can't have. And when you think about what Marie is saying, what the protagonist is saying, what is being said about art, and what is being said about dreams, and tie it back into what Menshiki is saying here, what it really means is that the protagonist and Marie are the type of people who can dream and envision things even beyond their capabilities, but can really dream of sort of a better tomorrow. It reminds me of a Chris Rock joke, when you're white, the sky is the limit. When you're black, the limit's the sky. It's really that sort of changing of where the protagonist and Marie, even though they might not be able to have everything, their dreams and ambitions are infinite, the seen and the unseen, because they believe in the unseen future. They believe in their potential. They believe in the possibility of things, whereas Menshiki has always been more of a go out and grab it, and if I can't have it, then I'm not interested in it type of person, just sort of very focused within his own sphere, unable to envision things beyond that sphere. I don't know what Amada really takes, or how he kind of slots into that, but I think that it's the sense that it's the not knowing, in the sense that through killing Commendatore, he really painted what should have happened, and in that sense it was his only way of reclaiming that part of himself. And whether or not it was sufficient, whether or not it really like sort of worked to claim his regrets, I think it did, because another theme throughout 3 of these 4 characters is the living spirits, where Minshiki's living spirit visits the closet, the protagonist's living spirit visits his wife, Amada's living spirit comes back to visit the painting, because for him this painting is his one way of kind of recapturing and setting the world right. Just it's the one thing that he has, and it's the sort of belief in art and its ability to do that, not just in terms of like showing it to the world, but I think specifically deliberately in how he doesn't show it to the world, in how he keeps it for himself. He keeps it up in the attic, which is very metaphoric for you have the core of the house, and then up in the attic, up in his mind, up where nobody else can see it. And in the end, that's where it stays. In the end, the protagonist takes his own painting, The Man with the White Subaru Forester, which is really a painting of his own rage and fury over his wife leaving him, and his own sort of darker emotion and dark side, and puts it up in the attic, not because he's trying to run away from it, but because he sort of, one of the things, the constant recurring things in the book is you need to have time on your side, which is basically saying you don't need to do everything at once. It's another connection between Marie, the protagonist, and the way that Marie wants to become an adult instantly, so that she's no longer a burden on her aunt and no longer has to live with her father, but also the way that the protagonist is trying to force too much onto other people, and realizing, when the book starts with the faceless man coming back to him, and he still can't paint his portrait, and he reiterates, "I need time on my time," or on my side. And I always took his thing at the end, his willingness to go back to painting old paintings, as a sort of defeat in a way. Like, oh, he had this big crazy journey, he should come out on the other side of it, like, revitalized and ready to do his own artwork. But I think that there's actually a really mature statement here about saying that if you force too much growth at once, you just end up collapsing. And this idea that Marie says, like, the painting is unfinished, her own portrait, but it's a work in progress, kind of like I am. And the protagonist even says, like we all are. We're all works in progress. We're all constantly changing who we are. It even mentions near the end that Marie even has a growing interest in Minshiki as time goes on. And how these 4 characters look towards their children. Obviously, only 3 of them have children, but Marie, in terms of how she is interested in Minshiki, who could possibly be her father, is another thing that all of them have in common, but they all treat differently. Amada, I gave you my DNA, what more do you want? Minshiki spies on Marie with the possibility that she may or may not be his daughter, but never takes direct charge because he doesn't want to know either way. Meanwhile, the protagonist chooses to believe that his daughter is his daughter, and that belief is enough for him. Because in some ways, and this is kind of Murakami's constant thing, what we believe, our perceived reality, is in some ways more important than real reality. So it's just the way that these 4 characters really reflect these different themes back on each other and have these similar situations, and the way that in doing so really builds them up to be interesting characters and very multifaceted, because it's not just that you're seeing one situation and how you're seeing the same theme, the same sort of situation playing out across multiple different ways, and in the differences between them, you start to see the characters, the personalities, and the sort of layers emerging in a way that you just don't get when you have stories where characters don't reflect various aspects of the themes. And also in doing so, what you really get out of it is a much richer exploration of those themes, assuming that you're willing to, put in the work to identify those themes, which I think a lot of people don't with this particular book. And it's very sad, because there's really a great book here with a lot going on, but there's almost so much going on that, like I said, it wasn't until I started taking pictures, until I started, and, I've read this book several times, so it was a lot easier for me to remember, like, oh yeah, I think this kind of ties into something later. I'll take a picture of it now, and then, 300 pages later when this comes up again, I'll be able to draw the connection here. But yeah, there's so much going on here, and all these webs of similarities that really reflect the themes in different ways. And I like it because, let's take like Menchiki, who might be seen as the closest thing the book has to an antagonist. Even he is not all evil, and in fact he's a likable guy, an affable guy, really just not terrible at all, but at the same time he's human, and he's kind of letting his insecurities and letting those parts of him dominate him. He's a very, very strong person, but sometimes that manifests in good ways, and sometimes that manifests in bad ways, and I love that balance that's going on here. Anyway, this is I'm starting to do exactly what I wanted to avoid in a review, which is rambling about how much I like this book and the things that I like about this book. So I'm going to go to cut it off here, because I think I've proven my point. Hopefully it's given you something to think about, and a new way to appreciate books, because, like I said, reading other books after doing my review of The School of Night has really I've been looking for this, and I've been finding it a lot. So I hope it's something that you start looking for too, and it lends to a deeper enjoyment of your books. Until then, take care and enjoy yourself.